Bases dropped on Soccer's morning show. Hi. It was a great night, great late afternoon yesterday, catching up with our folks from Atlanta Classical in Lincoln County for the SDH playoff action that you're seeing across the network. Jason will be at Midtown tonight for the doubleheader there, and we will also be at River Ridge. So I guess that's your breaking news for the early part of the morning is that we will be Thursday at River Ridge for the doubleheader in Woodstock as the race to the championships in Macon and McEachern continues. So high school stuff going on all over the place. So very, very cool to catch up with Will Homskis and our friends in Lincolnton yesterday and catch up with the Holt brothers and ACA. ACA wins at 4-2, and they advance to the round of 8 in Class A Division II. A lot of action on Monday, a lot of action today. Wednesday and Thursday is what's going on as we trim it from 16 to the rounds of 8. Good evening, Bam. And so once again, just keep an eye on everything Morning Cocoa. We'll keep everything as up to date for you as possible when it comes to the brackets and things like that. I had a couple of different things this morning. And a quick reminder, Mitch Northam at Primetime Mitch on the Twitters. He's got a new book out, and it's about Atlanta United's run 5 years ago. And we'll have the talk with Mitch coming up at 10 o'clock and catch up with him about his book, about the creative process, what compelled him to write it. And we'll go from there. But it'll be good to catch up with author Mitch Northam. So we'll catch up with him at 10 o'clock and break down his new book about the 5th anniversary season of Atlanta United's championship. So very, very cool stuff. Available on Amazon, by the way. And I'm sure that Ricky will post the link faster than I could ever find it. So it'll be very, very cool to catch up with Mitch in the 10 o'clock hour. Had a couple of thoughts this morning, and they really all could classify as opening kickoff. They could classify as topics across the board, but, Tuesday thoughts, once again, everything is on the table that we may have missed on Monday, have today, before getting into Wall Pass Wednesday. And morning, Ricky, and catching up with Dylan Butler and Bart Keeler in hour number 2, as we traditionally do on Wednesdays. With Bart, we'll find out about Julie Ertz. We'll ask about the Continental Classico and the roster there, and the continued substitute teaching of Anthony Hudson, and if he's any closer actually to really being considered for the gig. So we'll see what happens there. Couple of topics this morning, and like I said, I know that here in hour number 1, I could go opening kickoff with any of these. I could go topic with any of these, and I could, we could just we'll eventually address them all. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, and so Bam. By the way, and this is something that we've been hearing for a while. Sifu could be getting a move to Europe, could be getting it on a free, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you want a return on your investment for something like that. Letting a player go in this environment on a free, I mean, those kinds of things, you really, really, really want to try to get some kind of a return on your investment. And, that's no, you want to get some kind of return on your investment, like we're seeing with Udinese in Cincinnati, getting a return on Brenner, those kinds of things. Kamal Miller and the trade going back to Inter Miami and Montreal. Kamal Miller wanted to move to Europe, and his saga will be interesting in Inter Miami. Yes, they need help in defense, but they also need help scoring goals. Montreal needs help with everything, and so you end up with Bryce Duke and Ariel Lassiter last week going to Montreal in this deal. So you have an unhappy player in Kamal Miller. You get offense from Inter Miami. How long does Inter Miami hang on to Kamal Miller, and do you try to get something for him? So those are the questions that you're staring at there. Yeah, and Bam, to your point about John Thorrington, pretty sure we have the option clause on him, but he'll do what's best for player and club. That's what you do. And concerned about Mbake Fall isn't getting any time over at Villarreal. Maybe you get him on a loan back. Those kinds of things. Villarreal is, the La Liga, and I know that we were getting into, all of the topics and all the stuff across the board here on Tuesday Thoughts. You look at Villarreal, and they're sixth in the table. They're part of the decision. When it comes to Europe, but they're going to need some decent run of form to get that 4 spot. They're 4 points back of Real Sociedad after match week 29. So does Fall get lined back? And so that's what you're looking at there. But okay, here's what I had on mind this morning. Talking about Arsenal, and the Total Football Analysis had a story out where TFA says that for our friends at Arsenal, it's not a bug, it's a feature, basically. And so they got into the stutter is a pattern, not a coincidence. And that was what our friends at TFA had. We were getting into Major League Soccer, and hasn't made it back into the squad, as you're talking about Fall. Made it back into the squad for the B team in the second division. So this morning we've got Arsenal as a feature, not a bug. We have what we were discussing yesterday, and the question to the floor about how long is too long at the table before you have to back away. And then the third topic was Leeds. So, you see what happens when you get rid of somebody too quick. Jarrett Smith now in. So, Jarrett, we had a couple of topics this morning that I had on my mind, and we all know how my mind works, which is random and never in a straight line. First topic that I had in my mind this morning is how long at the end is too long at the end. And the reason I ask that is what we're seeing with the two blue bloods at the bottom of the West with Peter Vermes and Greg Vanney. And the standings in the West do not include Sporting Kansas City. And like I said, this is after match week 8. We're at the quarter pole. I get it. But LA and Kansas City right now, Sporting Kansas City has only scored 2 goals all year. They've given up 11.
They have 2 red cards.
Yeah.
They have as many red cards earned as they do goals scored. That's where Kansas City is.
Yeah. And, when you look at where, last year, and like I said, we'll get into this with Dylan again tomorrow. But last year, where Sporting Kansas City was concerned, we were throwing dirt on Peter Vermes. They went zombie Sporting, picked up some guys in the summer window that helped them with their offense and made the rush that they did. LAG, 3 points, no wins, 3 draws. And it probably would be, honestly, after 8 match weeks, had the first El Tráfico at the Rose Bowl not been flooded out and pushed back to July 4th. But now,
a bunch of people still don't understand the geography and climate of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean it is a mind all of its own. And we talk about Greg Vanney and we talk about Peter Vermes right now at the bottom. And I mean there's some distance. I mean RSL, they're a win above them both at 6 points in Colorado and Austin and so on. After 8 match weeks, you're basically at the quarter pole. And this is always my gauge for determining where a team is. Get to the quarter pole. If they're healthy all the way through, then you can see who they are on the field, personnel-wise, philosophically, all those kinds of things. And right now, at least LAG is scoring goals. they've scored 5, and they got 40% of that last week in El Trafico. The only thing that was missing was a come on as a part of the drunken craziness that was El Trafico. But they've given up 12 goals in 7 matches. Kansas City, you mentioned it, as many red cards as goals. How long is too long at the end for somebody like Peter Vermes, who is part of the fabric? I mean, dude is a legend in that market, in that organization, and has multiple positions that he has to take care of. And then Greg Vanney, who, yes, you're dealing with a transfer ban. Yes, you're dealing with all of the issues that were created by folks before you showed up. But LAG is where LAG is, and you've made some really poor investments in players, Douglas Costa, and you're hurting right now. How much more rope do we give guys like that because of what they have been given and their reputation?
Well, at least with Kansas City, it's only one switch you would have to flip because Vermes carries multiple roles, and in LA, you wonder, it's Klein first, who's the one that everybody wants out. Like,
Yeah, well, and there's the door, basically.
I mean, here's the thing, like, as much as I, still see a lot of Boca out stuff, man, I promise it can be worse because,
Uh-huh.
oh God,
Mm.
um, the Galaxy are just a mess, and they've consistently been a mess, which sucks for Klein because I don't think he is. I don't think, and he's not. I don't think he's being malicious. I think he's in a situation where he's trying to dig out of a hole, but the only way to dig seems to be down,
Yeah.
and things get consistently worse. You are thrashing around in the water, and all you're doing is, picking up more stones to take down with you. And at some point, at some point, what do you do? You just get him out of the. It's a quicksand. It's a quicksand metaphor. I mean, the more you struggle, the more you're sinking. Really,
Yeah.
beyond water. At some point, you got to have somebody grab the crane and just pull him out and get somebody else in. And it's the thing is, like, and this always kind of irks me when we think about, like, GMs or technical directors failing. I don't ever think it's malicious. I think, no one's trying to tank an organization. They're doing what
Right.
they think is best. Now, whether they're listening to the people around them or not, that's up for debate. That's stuff that we don't know. That's internal conversations. But I mean, they're trying to do the best with what they've got, and I don't ever think it's a malicious thing. So I do feel sorry for guys like him who, yeah, are just in a quicksand situation. It sucks to be in. Vanny is another end of that equation because he's stubborn as hell. It's
Yes.
very funny that Bob Bradley now in Toronto is kind of shifting away from his, like, stubborn, I only do things one way mentality, and shifting more to, kind of bit a bit. Whereas Vanny is like, I'm going to run my system. It's not working. Okay, fine. I'll change things up late in the game. Hey, man, that worked really well for like 30 minutes. Have you considered doing it? No, we won't do that.
I mean, you have Dejan Joveljic, you have the Bishop there, and he has proven himself to be, I think, per 90 minutes, one of the most prolific scorers in Major League Soccer over the last handful of years. And I mean, it's like, for those of us of a certain vintage, it's Vinnie Johnson of the Detroit Pistons. Everybody, when they were in their heyday, Vinnie Johnson would come off the bench, launch a couple of threes. That's why they called him the microwave, because he comes in, he's instantly heated up, bang, and Detroit's either out of a jam or they put more distance between themselves and everybody else. Dejan Joveljic is the Los Angeles Galaxy version of the microwave. And to Bam's point, and Bam has been on fire this morning, considering we're talking about the kids in Carson as opposed to his folks at BMO. Bam maintains that Vanny's doing a great job. Same with Klein. They both need contract extensions. Give them both lifetime contracts. And to your point, Jarrett, Bam says Vanny's plan B is to do plan A better. So I mean, Bam's not wrong, but
I mean, it's because of Schadenfreude, and the reason Bam's enjoying this is the reason we enjoy anything like this. It is the only thing we love more than hearing nice things about our team is hearing catastrophe about the team we don't like.
yeah.
Schadenfreude is a real thing.
Uh-huh.
John, you experience this every fall,
Oh, yes, I do.
every single fall when
We all.
Texas A&M completely does something embarrassing,
Uh,
and the quitter, as you have dubbed him, does something
yes.
embarrassing.
Well, there's usually an adjective ahead of the word quitter, but for the sake of the show, no, we won't get
That man was like, "I want a Texags question yesterday." That man said he wanted a Texags question.
I mean, seriously,
He wants a layup.
your buyout is $87 million. And we're talking about Jimbo Fisher yesterday at his press gathering there in College Station, where he thought that questions from outside the university news organizations weren't good questions that he wasn't going to answer. So SI, Bleacher Report, those folks, he wasn't going to answer those questions. But he wanted a question from the inside organization that he thought was going to be a better question. So a guy that doesn't want to defend himself, wants to defend himself to the organization's insiders and get a layup and sit there and talk about things that he, wants to talk about and put his answer on those kinds of things. So yes, that is certainly a choice because, and we and as we evolve into the OSG sports side of things with the college football with the college football show. Ricky with Jimbo Fisher basing the safety of his future on Mr. Cut and Run. Don't think for a second that Robert Petrino Esquire doesn't have about 9 different plans about pushing him off the ledge. Don't think that for a second.
Oh, that's what's going to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
Is when
we're going to buy him out at $80+ million. Hey, Bobby Petrino, would you like to be the head coach at Texas A&M?
Who was it? Who it wasn't? It wasn't Tuberville. Who was it that when he was at Auburn he tried to? Was it Tuberville? He tried to snake at Auburn.
Well, I mean, they had. I think it was when Tuberville was. Let's see, Bobby Petrino. See, now you're going to have me looking for. Hey, Ricky.
Yeah.
Ricky, you're faster at this than I am. When was Bobby Petrino on the tarmac at Auburn?
Because he tried to take the job from a buddy of his.
Yeah. It was. I think it was Tuberville. I think you're right.
To bring it back to steer it back on course. My point being, Schadenfreude is a very real thing, and the thing we love more than hearing nice things about our teams and sports in general is hearing catastrophe about the team we don't like.
Right.
And that's where you're at right now. If you are if you're LAFC, because the Galaxy are an absolute dumpster fire. Epic proportions.
No question. The thing is, that right now, if you're not making the playoffs, Chris Klein is gone.
Yeah, he did try and take the job from Tuberville, which is given Tuberville's current employment and his quote sheet over the last year is an amazing, just God, could you both just not? Man, there's this. My favorite thing about that is somewhere there's a cross section of Falcons fans who also went to Texas A&M and are just in hell right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolute hell.
Yeah, and we're waiting for the quitter and the and Robert Petrino Esquire for that harmonic.
For those of you who are not in the South, he said he wants a Texags question because Texags. This is similar to the joke that we're making when Jim Curtin was mouthing off in the preseason of about the South.
Yes, they're plastics.
They care more about college football. Texags is one of these mini blogs like Tiger Droppings. I don't know the Georgia specific one, but these message boards that are, how can I describe this? Terrifying.
Yes.
these just galaxy brain message boards of psychotic fans that are just, it's almost impossible to like understand their insanity.
Yeah. Bam says, all I hear from them is what happened before LAFC were around. And to top it off, other MLS 1.0s are saying we should support Galaxy fans with the fight against the front office.
That's the idea that the rising tide lifts all boats. And the idea that I know we don't love it at the time, but speaking as a Celtic fan, I can tell you that it crossed my mind with Rangers of um, when you have a rivalry and one team is just comically inept, it really does take the fun out of it long term.
Mm-hmm.
And
Boston and Red Sox, Yankees.
Yeah, Auburn, Alabama during some of those really lean years for both programs. It's not as much fun.
Well, and there's always the thought of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And why, if there's a big rival, why should I root for, I get the idea of supporting the Galaxy fans with the fight against the front office. I understand that idea, but why would you do that if you want to have continued success over your enemy? You want that chaos to last as long as humanly possible. And remember, you're dealing with a transfer ban right now with LAG.
Yeah, LAG is glass bones and paper skin right now. By the way, St. Louis is kind of getting a version of this with their own version of this with Kansas City. Like St. Louis came into the league and sitting on top of a lot of leaderboards that you want to be on top of.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, one of the blue bloods, Kansas City, not doing the same thing.
No, and that's and Michael Head reminding us that the South's longest rivalry is non-existent because apparently Georgia has killed Auburn over the last 15 years. But
Auburn has done like enough minor damage just to make it funny. Like
yes.
2018. 2018 during the game, I think it was in Auburn. Where like Auburn just beat the hell out of Georgia, like it wasn't even close.
The Jake Fromm game, yeah, and then you have the Ricardo Lewis touchdown where Josh Harvey Clemens and Trey Matthews decided to try and knock it down. 2017 is the.
I was sitting in a car riding with my aunt and uncle in Athens. We'd gone out for dinner to listen to an acquaintance of ours play at a bar. And we're on the way home listening to that, and I still in my mind can still hear the radio call and the absolute like dread, just the absolute dread in the radio call of the oh my god, it's a touchdown, Auburn.
Yeah, well, and I mean that year, I mean if like I said, if Rod Bramlett, rest his soul, did not win all of the awards that were submitted for him with the run that he had in back-to-back weeks or back-to-back games, 2 calls in a 3-week period where you had that with Georgia and then you had Iron Bowl and the kick six. If Rod Bramlett did not win every award that year, then something was seriously wrong with the awards making process. It is Michael talking about Georgia and Auburn. South's oldest rivalry is basically dead. Dogs have dominated so hard lately. But yeah, I mean, you gotten in your dings, you gotten in your shots. But I mean, the thing is,
if we could get that to continue, so I don't have to see Hugh Freeze, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, and I get to go see Hugh Freeze on Tuesday. By the way, date night. But no, the biggest question though is that with those, I mean, LAG. Now the thing is that if we throw Montreal into this mix, because they're currently last in the East, we know that Joey Saputo is not one to have something last for a long time. It's like if he's gonna be like Thanos with the glove, And it doesn't matter when. It's just like if he's mad at Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning and he's had enough of Aaron Lasada, he's going to pull the trigger. Doesn't matter what the logic is that's attached to it. That's just how it's always been in Montreal. But the question is, I guess, how much rope does Vermes get in Kansas City, considering everything that he's built? How much rope does Vanny get in Los Angeles, considering everything that happened before he got there, and how much is put upon him because of what he was not able to do while he is there? And then Montreal, we know Montreal, and Joey Saputo is going to have a mind to do his own thing. But for those established franchises and those established coaches, how much of a leash do they get, considering we're now at the quarter pole? Sporting is in serious trouble, and the Galaxy aren't too far away from being in serious trouble. I guess that's my question here.
I mean, for Sporting, I mean, I think the leash is longer because Vanny's been there for so long and has so much hardware. I mean, and this is the question we ask about. We ask in all sports is how long is too long? Did Florida State hang on too long?
Yes.
Says the Florida State grad.
Yes.
Did Bama hang on too long with the Bear? Like, is Belichick hanging on too long? But if you're figuring that out, yeah, I've been banned. I've now officially been banned from all New England press conferences. That's fun. The problem is though, how do you figure that out? That how do you do it in a respectful way? Because I feel like if you do that, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea. If you do it though, you're going to have to do it in a very respectful way and figure out how you want to move forward. Because again, Vanny just signed a contract this year, an extension. He's also in charge of more than just coaching. Like he is basically GM.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they do it, and if they're able to do it in a way that kind of celebrates him while also acknowledging that it needs to happen. LA Galaxy, not I don't think you have to be as clean cut.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And Michael once again reminding us, gotta love a soccer show that brings in the South's oldest rivalry. I mean,
and Ricky's right. It was 2017 that Auburn just jumped up and smashed Georgia over the face with a tire iron, and it came out of nowhere because it was hilarious. I was at the station at the time, and Orrin Romaine, one of the producers, who's a huge UGA fan,
proudly representing the city of Tucker.
Yes, yes, and Orrin's just in a different level of hell during that game because Georgia thought they were going to walk all over
Auburn. David, as a Browns fan, too much change never builds to anything. Yeah, as evidenced by the one guy that's always, there's always that picture that we see with the Cleveland Browns with all of the starting quarterbacks, and it was like it started with Tim Couch, and all of those Shedrick Wynn and all those different guys where the guy had like a different piece of tape and it would go down the back of the jersey. Too much change never builds to anything, but things do run their course. I like Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, but was okay with keeping them around for a while when it was over and when it was time.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I think the Galaxy, you're in that situation because I think both of these are different situations, and y'all can disagree. Totally okay. I think these are different situations where the Galaxy, you're definitely in a situation where you're getting really risky about getting Brownsian about it, where you are making too many changes too quickly and there's no stability. I think Kansas City is a situation where you could see change and it's okay because it has been so stable for legitimately like 12 years. They are on a And I get it. They have one MLS Cup, and I think they have 2 or 3 U.S. Open Cups.
Yeah.
I think they might have a Shield in there too. Um, it is an almost unheard of level of long term sustainability from Kansas City, and I think the closest thing you're getting to that now is is what's going on in Seattle, because
Mhm.
Seattle, as we know, is basically like that standard now. But Kansas City went from kind of being a mess to being amazing, and now they have question to make. And is it time to move off of this era? It's different than the Galaxy making changes every couple of years.
Yeah.
Also, and to quickly, yeah, bam, I did see that where the women's game shootout where the goalkeeper slotted the first one home, casually walked up to the spot and saved the goal. Just
That was excellent.
absolute gangster material.
That was excellent stuff. Okay. Rich has posted something that I have not seen.
Oh God.
Rich is discussing. Okay. Okay. All right. So Rich brought something into the table and into the chat where apparently, and like I said, this is like way deep gossip. This is message board guy here. So
Hell yeah.
Rich, keeping an eye out for all of us here in the Southeast. Late to the story of Atlanta United buying Charlton Athletic.
What?
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what the response has been. Brian Sipe, very good poll.
Charlton or Charleston? Because I need to know right now for my own sanity.
Well, yeah. So, all right.
Because
So,
Ben Pierce doing great work in Charleston.
yeah. Okay. So, Rich, can you find the link and post it here in the Twitch pitch? That this is the public service this morning once again as we have Tuesday thoughts. So, Rich Ransom has said, and like I said, this is so off the rails, mind blowing that we need to have. I need to figure out where this is so I can keep an eye on it. Rich has a Charlton Athletic supporter in a Discord he's in is saying he does say it's only a rumor, and that's in his circle. So Burn Galaxy messed up because they should have hired Garth Lagerwey. Their issues start at the top, 90% related to bad talent acquisition and roster builds. Douglas Costa. It's just
Costa's the tip of the iceberg, man.
woof.
Like Zlatan papered over it for like 2.5 years,
But he
but remember,
conquered MLS, Jarrett.
also, man, all Zlatan had was I think he had one playoff win. Like, cool. He had a couple of highlight moments. He had a couple goals that were some of the best goals you will see, um, but didn't win anything of substance.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. All right. So this is going to turn into a bit of a Charlton Athletic down here. If this is in fact something that is being discussed. So, yeah, like I said, Rich, public service, please put the link in the Twitch pitch to the Discord you're in. Here's what right now, Charlton Athletic safely in
Agreed, man. He didn't win any trophies. Zlatan can say whatever he wants. Zlatan was just
yes, exactly.
there.
Zava. Yes, Zava, Michael, exactly. But Zlatan is still chasing after titles at the age of 41, I think, instead of going back to his avocado farm. Morning, Abby. All right, so and Charlton Athletic for me. Oh boy, yeah, this is a tale, and right now Charlton Athletic is 11th in League One. So right smack dab in group number 2, I want to say, when it comes to League One football. League One is the third tier in the English football pyramid. And so what you're looking at there, first and foremost, once again, it's the third level of English football. And right now, Charlton Athletic, bastion of mediocrity that they are, with a handful of games to go in the season. They have 4 matches to go in their regular season. If they won out, they would not make it into the promotion playoffs. So they will be spending another season in League One. 55 points right now, and they're part of a group. Okay, so here's what Charlton Athletic is to the pyramid in England. In at the end of the 2022 calendar year, their majority owner had an overhaul of the senior staff, sacked the first team manager, replaced him. Technical director, managing director, finance director, all brought in, new. And allegedly at the time, and this is from our friends at The Athletic from a deep dive, and Charlton Athletic is definitely worth a deep dive considering how troubled they are as a franchise. The finance director, who was thought to have links to fresh investment, came in the door. Sandgard bought Charlton back in September of 2020, saying that there would be less stress and drama around the club. And that was, once again, the article from The Athletic, a nod to the decline that had set in since a resignation in 2006 and relegation from the top flight in English football a year later. The owner was hailed as a charismatic savior, the new one, from the turmoil that had consumed the group under the ownerships of Roland de Châtelet, and that's a Google search in itself, and the East Street Investments Group. De Châtelet's Spella's owner from 2014 when he bought Charlton to add them to a new network of teams already under his control. Tell me where you've heard that kind of thing before. Was a hostile, spirit-crushing experience for fans from the moment popular manager Chris Powell was sacked shortly after his arrival back in 2014. First of 8 managerial changes under the old owner. Player turnover also high. Nick Pope, Ademola Lookman, Joe Gomez, all sold as Charlton went down to League One in 2016. Fans, once controversially referred to as customers by the old owner's chief executive, staged regular protest. Plastic pigs were thrown on the pitch by both sets of supporters in a match against Coventry City. John Nason would remember this. Back in 2016, while the coalition against Roland de Châtelet's fans group raised over £60,000 in protest funds. So literally you have this going on. They had one promotion to the championship in 2019. Short-term success built on a bed of sand. De Châtelet sells the club in 2020 to East Street investors, but retained ownership of the stadium and the training ground. ECI, a consortium fronted by a majority shareholder and an executive chair, first failed to produce the funds expected, then collapsed in a battle for control of the club. 5 months of interest. Then you end up with Sandgard, a businessman based in Colorado and founder of the medical device manufacturing company Zynex, has been regarded by The Athletic as an eccentric presence. So that's what you're looking at right now. The Athletic Supporters Trust, quote, we had high hopes actually when Sandgard took over and went through a lot to get the ownership sorted. It was a complex transaction, showed a lot of determination to get that done. We all felt that hopefully it would be the start of a new era, but he was maybe a bit over-exuberant with some of his comments, talked about being in the Premier League in 5 years, things like that. 4 managers have come and gone with this new owner since 2020. 2 key concerns that The Athletic raised with this new owner back in September of 2021. The club still, once again, does not own the stadium, and the guy had not appointed a chief executive as they were chasing after new investment at the beginning of the calendar year. That's what you're looking at. The owner's son is the club's director of analysis without any previous footballing experience. Previous work was primarily as a production and supply chain manager for that billion-dollar company that's based in Colorado. The owner, when he appointed his son, said he did not rule out other responsibilities being added to the role. I'll post the link to the article about Charlton Athletic.
And just so we're clear, this is not happening, confirmed. This is a rumor that's coming off of Discord that Rich was so kind to share in our Discord as well, I believe.
Thank you.
So as John is going through all this, please don't take this as gospel.
No.
Please don't run with this as like a thing that is absolutely happening. I don't have the fortitude to deal with this.
Yes.
If it becomes like a thing of, we're saying this is happening. No, we're not. It came from a Discord, and it might be like.
Yes.
And Rich, thank you very much for sharing it.
Yes.
Like this, it's an interesting concept, and Byrne builds on it of, do you learn from what went down in Aberdeen, which is, man, Aberdeen is complicated because if for nothing else, like Aberdeen, like went to more of a like progressive model and then just decided not to after a calendar year and basically like change the roster to fit that model
Yep.
and then decided not to change it anymore and go back what they were doing, but they'd already overhauled the roster, so they didn't know what they were doing. And Jim Goodwin was just a really bad manager.
Oh, that was so bad.
There's a lot there. Carry on, John. I just want to make it very
No,
clear that we are like not saying this is happening. We are
no, but
just
what I wanted,
you can explain the story for
yes,
sure because it's hilarious, objectively funny.
yes. And so thank you, Rich, for letting us know about this so we can be more informed. But yes, with the checkered, and that's the word that I will use, QURED, checkered history, CHE.
All I can think about is the clip from the show Arthur. Would someone do that? Would someone lie on the internet?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, and then
Rich, I haven't heard a thing about that. You're the
we have
first one. You're the
yes,
first one who said anything about this. So
yes,
we're as surprised as you are, man.
yes. So legitimately, this is like news, or not even news, but that is discord to us. That legitimately is discord to us. But I thought it would be important for at least the context of how chaotic Charlton Athletic is and has been for a
Yeah.
decade to this discussion. If this is part and parcel where somebody is tied to the Addicks and ADDICKS, which is the nickname for Charlton Athletic, if someone is tied to that has conversation, and like I said, this is so conjectured, it is like a complete and total circle, getting back to the beginning of this. If this is part of a discussion where AMBSC might be, and like I'm going to keep
Arthur Blank going full Red Bull or City model would be hilarious, though.
yes. Okay, so learning from the Aberdeen deal, no synergies from an MLS team to buy into a bad European club. You either have a true multi-club model like City or Red Bulls, or you're better off owning one club.
Yeah,
And
just go full City or Red Bulls. Do it. I just
yeah,
want to see what happens.
well, and Rich, long story short, Charlton fan said something, so he asked the fans the other end of the rumor. So no,
No. I'm
fantastic.
interested.
Yeah, it is intriguing, Rich, without question, to see something like this go down. And where, and like I said, this is like playing telephone. That's the beauty of message boards. But I thought it was important when Charlton Athletics' name was mentioned. That sets off alarm bells for me as the resident lower division English pyramid guy. And so I thought it was important for everyone to understand the context of a Charlton Athletic and the background under this owner, who apparently is not necessarily as good, or as good in quotation marks, as the previous owner that thought. I mean, the guy and the new owner, they have a women's club also as a part of the women's pyramid in England. And apparently he wanted to change the team moniker from Charlton Women to Charlton Ladies. That got poo-pooed very quickly. So that's what you're staring at with this gentleman who is based in Colorado with his multi-billion-dollar medical business and wanted to appoint his son to the front office. So if it's Charlton Athletic, you got a lot of work, and you better be buying the stadium and the training ground if you're going to do something like that first and foremost.
So I do want to before we go, I do want to address not Burns, but Bam's question
Yeah.
about firing off fireworks outside of the team hotel. The other team doing that.
Yes.
And I know people don't like that. Yeah, we call that CONCACAF here.
Yes, we do.
Like we call that like a team playing in the Caribbean or in Central America in a stadium that does not have great turf to begin with.
No.
And you got people like pulling fire alarms and shooting off fireworks and doing everything they can to sabotage that visiting team.
Absolutely.
That's just CONCACAF, man.
Yes. David with the +1 of the morning. Arthur needs to buy Atalanta and move a bunch of players back and forth to make the sports ticker more fun.
No, do Club Atletico Atlanta in Buenos Aires.
There you go. Yeah, David, like denying visas to force a forfeit. Yeah, stuff like that. Well, that's a country to get involved there. That's a country's
government issue.
That's a government issue. That is full blown CONCACAF if you're getting the government involved for something like that. But yeah. So, Rich, if you would please, in addition to posting it into the Discord, be our intrepid reporter on this and continue to keep your ears to the ground on this notion of a mid-tier third division English club with a checkered past and present that possibly, maybe, perhaps is under a discussion to be picked up by AMBSC. So, that's an intriguing one for the morning. We talked about Major League Soccer and folks you're trying to figure out the when it comes to staying too long. Leeds got whacked yesterday.
Okay.
6-1 Liverpool. And now everyone who is a Leeds United
fan, we have to be nice about Jim Curtin. That's the agreement. Deal. Fine. I won't say anything bad about Jim Curtin. I'm going to say all the things about Jose Martinez, but I won't say anything bad about Jim Curtin.
Oh,
that's fine.
Yeah. I will say
no longer future Celtic manager Jim Curtin.
Well, apparently,
don't you dare.
Speaking of Jim
Curtin. Oh, okay.
No. Speaking of Jim Curtin, it is apparent, and once again, this comes from Jonathan Tannewald up at the Philly Inquirer, that they meaning the front office, they are really, really, really trying to make sure that Jay Sugarman has said that Jim Curtin's contract status will be settled before his deal expires.
Okay, I've been interested about this because he made a comment. Curtin made a comment, I think it was after the last game, about like someone asked him about the contract. He was kind of mum about it, and I wasn't sure if it was I don't feel like discussing it because we're in the middle of the season, and I'm just not going to do that, or if it was a thing of we're just not going to I'm not going to discuss it because I don't like where negotiations are at, that kind of thing. Like it's one of those things you could read into it 5 different ways.
Right.
So I was interested to hear more about where that stands because he is out of contract. I feel like Curtin at some point would try his hand in Europe. Don't know when that would happen.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out. All right. No. I want head coaches. I'm trying to find the list of head coaches and their salaries, and see where Jim Curtin currently falls. Brian Sciaretta over at ASN. Sugarman seems intent on getting Jim Curtin into a new deal. The team might not spend like LAFC, but they need to make Curtin among the best paid coaches in the league.
Absolutely. With everything he has done, absolutely. Because he is doing, and we had talked about this, man, even before he went to the dark side and went full like Count Dooku on us. Even before he did that, like even like 2018, 2019, like we were talking like, man, Jim Curtin is getting the fact that he gets anything at all out of Philadelphia at that time, especially when they weren't like it was Andre Blake and some young defenders, and they were just kind of making it work. The fact that he was getting stuff out of that team was just it should have gotten more merit at the time. I maintain my opinion that Jim Curtin won the wrong Manager of the Year award. He shouldn't have won it last year. It should have been Wilfred Nancy, or it should have been Wilfred Nancy, or Phil Neville should have gotten some more down ballot votes.
Right.
However, Curtin should have won it a year ago when he didn't win it. Like they just gave it to him in the wrong year. It was one of those dumb. I wonder sometimes if it was one of those dumb award things where like, well, we didn't give it to him that year, so he's in consideration. So he's going to win it this year to make up for that
Yeah.
because you didn't do your jobs the first time. So now you're just like trying to correct it the second time.
Yeah. And this might be just because of the beauty of what we're looking at, but the contract extension that was signed in 2021, once again, Sports Talk Philly back in 2021 gets a contract extension, and once again, no one's talking numbers. So, yeah, Steve Cherundolo. Well, I mean, hey.
Dude, I did not expect Steve Cherundolo to be that good that quickly. That's the thing.
Yes.
Steve Cherundolo has been great. Like, obviously, you can take a team full of talent. Like, you get enough raw talent, you can just power through. Now, Steve Cherundolo's been good, man.
Yeah.
I did not expect that. That was not expected.
No. It looks like, and I saw this, Bam, thank you for the link. Bob Bradley in his last year at LAFC made $450. Phil Neville in Inter Miami.
To be fair, giving it to Bradley in 2019 made sense because that was the second year they existed, and I would have accepted it in 2019, but I understand why you gave it to Bradley. It's the second year of LAFC's existence, and they were nigh unstoppable until they ran into a Seattle team in the playoffs that showed them zero respect, which was hilarious.
All right, so the numbers, according to our friends at Authority Soccer, a burned, absolutely. Steve Cherundolo not being talked about more for the USMNT job tells you all you need to know about U.S. soccer. The numbers right now, and this is from our friends at Authority Soccer, back in going into the 22 season. Schmetzer at 300. Almeida at 350 when he was employed. Savarese at 300. Jim Curtin at 280. Ronnie Dyla was
Almeida 350. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Bruce Arena 1.2. Gary Smith $500,000. Wilfred Nancy in Montreal at 180. So that's what you're staring at. Basically, you're looking at something in that 300,000 and above range. Tab Ramos, when he was at Houston, was making $550, so that's what we're staring at. So that's the kind of numbers that we're looking at for any kind of Jim Curtin contract extension.
My thing with the Tab Ramos thing is y'all could have not fired him and gotten the same performance you got out of your manager. I think it was Nagamura when he was there. You could have kept Tab. You could have kept Tab and gotten that, and probably saved some money because of buyouts. But that being said, Ben Olsen's working, y'all.
Yes,
and it's hilarious.
It's true. He is. It is the top of the hour, or close to it anyway. And Jarrett, for old time's sake, before you go, I'm going to bring in this guy, Mitch Northam, primetime Mitch. How are you?
Howdy.
So Mitch is chasing me when it comes to the number of published books that a gentleman has, and Jarrett traditionally leaves us after hour number one because the real world intervenes. But Mitch, Jarrett, has published his second book about it, and it's about Atlanta United. I was going to say it's his second book about Atlanta United, but it is his second book, and it is about Atlanta United. So we wanted to have Mitch on to talk about said book.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, Jarrett. How's it going?
It's going. We were just complaining about the league and actually also college football. A lot of college football.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, because since this is a soccer show, then it has a tendency to go off the rails. Gee, that never happens. But no, Mitch. I wanted to get into this because it's about Atlanta United and about the 5-year anniversary of the title and everything that went into it. So Mitch now is at 2, Jarrett, and I am at 6. And so that means I have to keep my margins. I've got to get books 7 and 8 squared away. But, Mitch, when it came to piecing this together, I guess the first question for those that don't know is why you did this, other than it being a round number to celebrate things.
Yeah, for sure. So for the listeners that might not know, I've been on here before, but it's been a while. So yeah, I covered Atlanta United in 2018 for this website called Pro Soccer USA. Some of y'all might remember that. It was around for about 2.5 years, and then the pandemic happened, and the pandemic shook a lot of things up and uh, brought a lot of things to an end. And Pro Soccer USA was one of those things that ended because of the pandemic. So because of that, a lot of the stuff that I wrote about Atlanta United that whole season is no longer anywhere to be found on the internet. You got to do some serious digging to find kind of any of the things that I wrote about Atlanta United during that season, using the Wayback Machine or digging through my old Word documents that I have on my computer, or going to newspapers.com every now and then. The Orlando Sentinel or the Chicago Tribune or the Annapolis Capital would pull some of our stories, since it was all a shared Tribune operation. So anyways, yeah, I guess about a year ago, I was looking for one of my old Atlanta United stories, and I just couldn't find it. And so that kind of sent me like on this quest to try to recover like as much as I could from, just I wanted just to have access to some of those stories. And recovered like a good chunk of them. And I was like, like we're coming up on 5 years. I kind of wonder if this could be a book, if this could be a thing, if I could piece together like enough to kind of tell the story of this season. And I feel like I did that. I feel like I was able to recover enough of those stories, enough of kind of the key, beats and moments of the season. So yeah, the next step after that was just kind of getting permission from the Orlando Sentinel, and they were willing to allow me to do this. So yeah, after that, it was just kind of piecing everything together and recovering stuff. And then I had some room left over at the end, so I was like, why not include some of the other work I did, which I just decided to call Other Southern Soccer Story, just as about the North Carolina Courage, which I ended up covering after I left the Atlanta United beat, and some expansion stuff. I was at the Charlotte MLS announcement in 2019. I was at the first Nashville SC game, against Atlanta United in 2020, right before the pandemic kind of shook things up. And I had a lot of photos left over, so I decided to just pack it all in one thing and package it up for the fans.
Rowdy and Proud, Atlanta United's 2018 MLS Cup season, and other Southern soccer stories. We posted the link in our Twitters. So Mitch Northam with his second book hanging out with us here in hour number 2 at SDH. When we do these kinds of things, and when I say this, I mean authors, we're piecing stuff together. It turns into, but what's the mug, by the way? We have to have the mug identified. What's the mug?
Oh, this is, I think it's from the Outer Banks.
Okay.
I got it a couple years ago. It has a little crab on it. Yeah. It's
okay.
a good mug.
When it comes to piecing things like this together as an author, it turns into a bit of a treasure hunt, because you'll go down one path and then another path will open up, and then it'll open up a third path, and you'll sit there and you'll go like 3 or 4 different stages while you're piecing something together, going, man, I forgot about this. I was developing this, and then this happened, and this happened. How much of a treasure hunt was this for you? You mentioned all of the different things that you had to do when it came to permissions, but as you were in the art of discovery, how much of a treasure hunt was it for you?
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff, that I was able to get through the Wayback Machine. If anybody's ever used that, it's a little spotty. If you type in prosoccerusa.com right now, it just takes you to the Orlando Sentinel's like landing page for its soccer coverage. So a lot of Orlando City stuff, a lot of Orlando Pride stuff. And there were a couple things that they pulled in from Pro Soccer USA to their main website, but not all of it, not nearly all of it. So yeah, it was a bit of a treasure hunt, just trying to find some of these stories. Like I wasn't able to recover everything, but I feel like I was able to recover a good chunk, through those couple of different outlets, through the Wayback Machine, through the websites that had picked up some of my stuff. I found my story about Chris McCann leaving Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the dirt on the Chicago Tribune's website. So that was interesting. So yeah, you just kind of, and that's like a moment that I kind of forgot about. And I was like, oh yeah, remember when Chris McCann left Zlatan in the dirt? That was fun.
Funniest things that ever happened.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
season.
One of the great moments of the season. So yeah, you just kind of, you forget about stuff. And then as you discover things, yeah, you remind yourself about different things. Like I had forgotten about, ahead of when they played at Orlando that season, Atlanta United's social media team put together that little video that made Tata Martino look like the Super Mario Brothers. And I wrote a little story about that I had forgotten about. So yeah, it was definitely an adventure. Like I said, through all my old Word documents, through newspapers.com, just trying to find as much stuff as I could about the season and about the team. And I had some kind of like leftover stuff that I didn't use. Like I have a chapter in here that's just like quotes from Darren Eales ahead of the MLS Cup. And I never used that in a story, but I had all these quotes from him. So I just kind of threw that in there. And yeah, it was an adventure for sure.
Jared, go for it.
Yeah, and you talked not just about Atlanta. I mean, I know you had other things you were covering, because every time I talked to you, you were back and forth, like up and down the Carolinas, even coming out to Atlanta United 2 games when they were in the godforsaken baseball fields in Gwinnett County.
Yes, at Coolray Field.
Coolray Field, yes. He was hitting free kicks over the field wall.
Which did happen, by the way.
Oh my God, it was weird, man. I guess aside from Atlanta, what was this, like, a story that really, like, that kind of lives rent free in your head? I know you talked about doing North Carolina Courage, especially, and I know the Courage have been in the news for not as good reasons in the last 2 years, but man, 2018 was a hell of a time to be covering them.
Yeah. I mean, the 18 and 19 seasons, where they go back to back. 19 was like the season that I was kind of really entrenched here in the Triangle and in the soccer scene here. I was covering, the Courage and NCFC a little bit. That was Dave Sarakin's first season as the NCFC head coach. So I included a story in the book, about him getting the job and kind of what he wanted to do, with the club. And then that sort of kind of dissolved itself when they decided to go down to USL League One. And he didn't really want to be a part of that. But there was a couple just stories that stuck with me. I included, my story from the Courage winning the NWSL title that year. Big win over the Chicago Red Stars. That was Sam Kerr's kind of last game, in the NWSL. But in that game, Heather O'Reilly played, and we thought at the time that was her last professional game. So I have a whole story about that. And then, I think it was last summer she signed with, that club in Ireland to play in Champions League. So that was pretty cool to see. But at the time we thought that was it. And she really played lockdown defense and was awesome for the Courage and kind of a key spot. The player that I remember most, from that season was Dabinia. I mean, that was really kind of the season where her star really grew and shined. And so I wrote a feature story on her that year that was featured prominently in the Orlando Sentinel. And I was able to recover that from newspapers.com and featured that in the story. And, at the time, like, people were calling her, the next Marta. And she's, I think, on her way to kind of maybe trying to live up to that. They're different players, but she is one of the most exciting players like I've ever watched in the men or women's game. Just how creative and active and awesome that she is.
I think she's more of the first Dabinia than she is the next Marta, because
I think you're right. Yeah.
Where I think that she is entirely different when it comes to her style and generational things and soccer and all that. And I'll pull the fourth wall back here. When I put a book together, traditionally my writing style is a circle, where I will start with a definitive moment that was probably toward the end of the story. And then I'll tell the story circling back to that moment that I talk about at the beginning with all of the details in between. So my writing style is more of a circle. When it came to piecing this together, were you more of a straight line telling the story of the season? how did you decide what you wanted to do and what your layout was going to be when it came to each of these individual elements?
Yeah, I kind of decided sort of from the outset that just since I was sort of a lot of this stuff is republished and the stories kind of went as they went. I decided it was probably going to be chronological. I did write like a new introduction, and that's kind of centered around I think a lot of us in 2018 thought that championship was the beginning of a dynasty. And as it turns out, it was not. But I think at the time, we looked at everybody that was coming back, even with the impending departures of Tata and Miggy. I think we all thought that this was a team built to win multiple championships over a span of years, and now 5 years later, there's almost no one left from that squad aside from Brad Guzan and Miles Robinson. So I kind of started the introduction with that, but then, just sort of went through the beats of the season. I sort of decided it was going to be chronological. I think that was the best way to kind of tell it. But there were definitely like some, a couple key moments that like I wanted to highlight. I thought that win over the Columbus Crew, I think it was in August. That was a really big like turning point for the season. Like there had been a lot of drama in July, with the whole Ezequiel Barco saga that we all remember. And there had been, a loss here. There was the early exit in the U.S. Open Cup, all that good stuff. Miggy was on a bit of a scoring drought. And then that Crew win, it's 3 goals, one each from Joseph and one from Miguel and one from Tito Villalba. And Joseph lays off an assist to Miggy, and he's like, I know he's been suffering and with the scoring drought. And so I thought that was a big turning point in the season. So I wanted to highlight that. And then there's a couple other games along the way that I knew I kind of had to have in there. But definitely I wanted to go chronologically.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting look back, because I think the Twitch pitch is going nuts about thinking back to 2019, because we literally just talked about this the other day, that like you are a really unbalanced Eastern Conference final game away from playing for back-to-back trophies.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like for you, in terms of like the memories about it, what like I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I guess it's like, which of those games kind of like, I know you mentioned a bunch of them, but it's like, do any of them, like, you just remember every detail about them, be it the cup, be it anything else like that, just like you could pretty much recite everything that seems to have happened in it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the cup. The cup is still like a vivid memory that I have. I remember like where I was sitting in the press box. I remember, the feeling that I felt like when the final like, whistle sounded and the stadium like went dark and then flashed the lights like for the win. Like I remember that. That was just such an awesome moment. And like I'm trying to finish up, my game story on deadline and everything. And then, I mean, the most vivid memories I have from that night are in the locker room. I had my camera with me, and I was able to get into the locker room for the celebration. Chris McCann doused me with a beer, so my camera smelled like stale beer. So about 2 weeks after that, it had to get a good clean.
Heineken. It was weird, man.
Yeah,
the whole locker room was weird.
It was a scene. Tito's up on the table and pouring beer into the cup and everything. I definitely have vivid memories of that. And the playoff win over NYCFC, I think that was a game where, if memory serves, I think the night before I was at a wedding in Maryland, and we had moved to North Carolina, but I told Pro Soccer USA, I didn't have a job when I first moved here, so I was like, I'm going to keep covering this team through the playoff run. So I told them I would drive down, and I crashed with my friend Lily on her couch, during some of the playoff games. So was at a wedding in Maryland on Saturday night, I think, and then I drove down, early Sunday to get there in time for kickoff for the NYCFC game. and I remember Miggy's free kick in that game. That was kind of the highlight of that game. But yeah, a lot of drives down I-85 towards the tail end of that season.
When it comes to these kinds of things, I don't necessarily think a lot of folks know the drive that journalists have. And in your case, it's both figurative and literal, going 3.5 hours, each way to continue to tell a story. When it came to that season first, when it came to piecing this book together second, how much effort went into all of this stuff for you? Because, how long a project are we talking to get this book together? When did you start this idea? Was it like after season number 4 and you're sitting there going, okay, there's an anniversary coming up? How long did it take to assemble this project to where you were happy with it? Because there's part of a lot of us when we're piecing these things together where the jigsaw puzzle's there in front of us, and we sit there and go, well, maybe if this goes here and this goes here, and then, let's shift this over to this, and then we have to take the puzzle pieces and we just jumble them all up all over again because we're not happy with it. How long did it take for you to be happy with it, where you could back away from your desk and go, I'm done, I'm sending this to the publisher, or I'm going to drive myself crazy?
Yeah, it probably kind of off and on probably took me about a year. I had thought about like the idea for something like this probably about 2 years ago while I was working on my first book, which you were a big help on. Thanks again.
No worries.
So I kind of was thinking about this, and so my first step, as I kind of went on the journey of trying to do this, was just seeing how much I could recover, because I knew that if I couldn't recover enough, then there was no point.
Right.
If I couldn't recover enough of the stories, then I would either have to, write a kind of a book from scratch, and that would take a lot of work. I would have to do a lot of, setting up interviews and a whole bunch of new original reporting and stuff like that. And that would have been fun and fine. I just wasn't sure I really had time for that. And I kind of wanted to just, part of the goal of doing this was just preserving some of the work that we did at Pro Soccer USA. I really just enjoyed like a lot of the stuff that we did there and thought that we did some good stuff. And now it doesn't exist anymore, which is kind of a bummer. So yeah, the first step was just kind of trying to figure out how much I could recover and how much, if that was going to be enough to sort of illustrate all the beats of the season. And then from there, once I had enough, it was kind of trying to lay it out. And then at the same time of doing that, trying to figure out who I was supposed to contact at the Orlando Sentinel and the Tribune to give me the permissions to do this, since it was originally published there. Eventually, I get in contact with some folks, and they seemed fine with it, and everything was good, and I got the permissions I needed. And then, yeah, from there, it was kind of piecing everything together, and then getting in contact with someone to design my cover, and that was all good. So, yeah, probably about a year, in all.
Jarrett, what do you think?
Well, and yes, I wanted to ask you, because you're in North Carolina now, and I know we've been talking about Atlanta for the last, 10 minutes. Because you are in North Carolina, I want to get your thoughts on the growth of Charlotte, because when we were sitting at press boxes in 2018, it was Atlanta and Orlando. Things have changed mightily in the South for Major League Soccer. And I know it existed long before that in lower divisions. We talked about the courage, but I wanted to kind of get your take on the growth in North Carolina with Charlotte, with Nashville up in Tennessee, and just the way the region has grown at the top level.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, before Charlotte got its MLS team, like whenever they would have big matches, whenever they would host, friendlies or whatever, I would go to those games and cover them for Pro Soccer USA. So like in 2019, they had a handful of them. They hosted some Gold Cup matches. It was like Mexico and Martinique and Canada and one other team that's escaping me at the moment. But there was like 60,000 fans at the match, for Mexico. So, and then, a couple months later, they hosted a friendly. I think it was between Liverpool and Fiorentina, and that was in the middle of summer in North Carolina, and it was a hot day. There was probably 40,000 fans at that game. A couple months later, the U.S. is doing its post World Cup tour for the women. They play a friendly there. It was like a Thursday night against Japan, and 40,000 people showed up for that game. So I knew that like the soccer interest was there in Charlotte. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Charlotte versus Atlanta United, and I was really impressed with just kind of how packed that stadium was. Of course, we know that Atlanta United fans travel, but there was just a lot of teal in Charlotte, in that stadium, having a good time and having a blast. So yeah, it's been cool to see like that soccer culture, sprout up in Charlotte, and it's another sign of proof that there is soccer fans in the South. I remember covering that first Nashville SC game, at Nissan Stadium against Atlanta United, and that stadium was packed. So yeah, it's been really awesome to see. I think we've effectively put to bed like the myth of there are no soccer fans in the South. Atlanta United was certainly the start of that, but yeah, the expansions that we've seen lately, there's definitely proof there.
Rowdy and Proud, Atlanta United's 2018 MLS Cup season and other Southern soccer stories. Say that 10 times fast, by the way. Mitch Northam hanging out with us for another handful of minutes. The other aspect that I wanted to get into specifically that has nothing to do with soccer, so I'll let Jared handle the soccer questions and I'll handle the author questions. Hey
man, we can also talk. We can also talk about we can also talk about managers or head coaches moving off the triple option for all I care.
Oh,
we can.
Because look, Mitch is who I go to for, especially when it comes to the academies.
Yes,
for sure.
So,
them saying Monkey's going to not run the triple. Hi, welcome to Kennesaw. We're still running it for better owners.
Well, and that's something that we'll end with in the college football version of the show.
That sounds good.
One of the other elements of this is you self-published this, right?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of folks, and admittedly, I do the same thing, but a lot of folks, when it comes to putting a book out on the market, there's this innate fear, there's some apprehension, there's, is it worth it? All those kinds of things when it comes to putting books out there. And it takes a lot to self-publish because, first off, you're betting on yourself. You're betting on yourself and you're betting on the project, and you're making sure that everything is right and it's told right and it's being done correctly. And you have, it's the idea of having 100% control versus the investment. And I'm talking more than just the physical investment of creating a book. It's a financial outlay as well. When it comes to self-publishing, how much thought were you giving that in and of itself? And how did you peddle this to publishers in and of itself, or just sit there and go, nah, screw it, I'm going to do it myself? How were you wired in this process?
I think with this one, it was a little bit different. My first book, I did, I had an agreement with a publisher initially, and then we kind of went our separate ways over, some disagreements about how long the book should be. And I peddled it to some other publishers and ended up going the self-published route. And it ended up being like a good experience for me. And I thought it was a good process and everything. And I was happy with the final product and how that book came out. And I did do a lot of work, myself in terms of promoting it and that sort of thing. But it was well received. And, I ended up, I didn't do it to make money, but I did end up making back what, everything that I invested into it, plus a little bit more. So that was good. With this one, I kind of thought that, when I went to the Orlando Sentinel for permissions, it seemed to me that, probably the best way that they were going to say yes was for me to self-publish and not, take those permissions and give them to another publisher. So that was like part of the thinking in terms of, doing the self-publish route. And I think the other part was, it just gave me total control over like how this book was going to come out and how it was going to be structured and all that good stuff. I don't know if I took it to a publisher again, like there might be some talks about length and, we don't need these stories. And are you sure you want to have this in, all that good stuff. I think with this one, since I kind of already had everything written, everything was already pre-published before on Pro Soccer USA. I had a good idea of like what was going to be in there and how it was going to be structured. And I thought it was just going to be an easier process to kind of have that control over everything.
All right, Jarrett, you want to go college football down here to wrap it up?
I'm gonna cheat and do 2 questions because
Okay.
I do have a quick one. It's kind of cheesy. I don't apologize for it.
No.
In 2018, because everyone seems to have a different answer for this. That's okay.
Okay.
At what point did you know something special was happening that year?
What point did I know? I feel like I kind of, coming into that season, I feel like I kind of had an inkling that like this was a team that could compete for a title. Just because of like looking at the roster makeup, like at the time, like there was everybody coming back from that 17 team, aside from your Yamil Assad and a couple other pieces. But you add Darlington Nagbe, you add Ezekiel Barco. A couple months later, you add Eric Rometti. So yeah, I'm not sure if like there was a moment. I think like there was the early season moment was when they just shellacked LAFC at home. I think that was like a 5-0 victory. And like doing that to them, like that was another team that like on paper, like top to bottom, just had this awesome roster. So when they did that, like that was pretty impressive. I keep coming back to that win over the Columbus Crew at home. That I think it was like mid-August or so, 3-1 win. That was a big one. I think just in terms of like getting the team kind of back on the right foot, and they had a run from there, to finish the season. I feel like all along, like I felt pretty good about it, but there were certainly like moments throughout the season where that kind of reinforced that thinking. And those are certainly 2 of those games. Trying to think of any more, if there's one that comes to mind. That there was a win over somebody. I can't even remember this game now, but it was like, I remember watching this game on like Twitch in my car, like on like Twitter used to have its own stream. I forget what game that was. But it was like some West Coast game, and they won that game. So I kind of felt for the most part, like through like they had a pretty good chance to compete, at least for the Eastern title.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm going to cheat and do a second question because what the hell, Jeff Monken?
Yes. For those that don't know, an article has come out yesterday from Stuart Mandel over at The Athletic. Apparently, Army is changing over to a primarily shotgun offense. Jeff Monken felt he didn't have a choice, according to Stuart Mandel, in the wake of an under-the-radar NCAA rules change last year that eliminated cut blocking anywhere but inside the tackle box. And so Monken admitted that they limped through last season back in 2018. Rules Committee eliminated cut blocking more than 5 yards downfield because of injury concerns arising from the preponderance of RPO plays. Now, with what is going on, Steve Shaw at the NCAA said the committee, in fact, had access to extremely specific injury data justifying the change. Paul Johnson says that he was on the rules committee when he was coaching. It was a constant battle then. They say that it's to reduce injuries, but they don't have any stats to back it up. I think a lot of it is just people just don't want to play against it, end quote. Jeff Monken isn't buying it either, but he's going from flexbone to shotgun, and there is gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands. So that's what's going on.
Yeah. I feel like I think part of the reason why Jeff Monken is doing this is because I think Jeff Monken wants a Power 5 job, and he's been like a finalist for 3 of them: Illinois, Kansas, and there's another one. And I feel like he needs to, like, there's part of him that thinks he needs to prove to like a Power 5 AD that he can run something that is not the triple. But I'm skeptical of like this being successful, just because I'm not sure that Army has the personnel to be successful in the shotgun. Like the reason why the service academies run the triple is because of the personnel. Like they don't have big hulking linemen to pass block effectively. And I'm not sure Army, like, if you told me like Army is going to run a variation of like what Coastal Carolina ran,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But do they have a quarterback like Grayson McCall to make that system effective? I don't think they do, but we'll find out. It sounds like Navy is going to stick to its guns here.
Yeah, they are.
Even under new head coach Brian Newberry,
Yeah.
and still run kind of the old school traditional triple. Air Force has been doing this a little bit for like the past couple of years under Troy Calhoun, and has been pretty successful with it. Where they were kind of mixing in like traditional triple with some of that coastal stuff and some shotgun. So we'll see. Like the Mountain West is a little bit different, like in a conference though, where some of that stuff works. Army, I don't know. Like part of Army's thing is like how they schedule too. Like, are they going to play a soft schedule against 3 FCS teams, or are they going to play some MAC and a couple Power Fives and see how that shakes out? So we'll see.
Chris Klonakis is now the new OC at Kennesaw State. They're installing a pistol. And Klonakis was a part of that Chris Alt group that did fully loaded pistol in the 2000s that we saw with Colin Kaepernick and his success. And so
those Nevada teams were ungodly.
Yep. No,
when Kaepernick was at Nevada, holy God.
Yep. Brian Bohannon says before we could go knock them on the ground and be fine, but we can't do that anymore. And you mentioned the irony of Grant Chestnut now going to Navy under Brian Newberry, who got promoted from D.C., and so they're not abandoning it. That's Stuart Mandel at The Athletic if you want college football down here. One question that Abby had as a bit of a clarifier. It was all your own writings. So do you own your own byline and keep a file on your computer of all your published works?
So I don't own all my own writing just because usually the way it works is like if you're writing articles for some places a freelancer, usually they own the copyrights to your work. So like, stuff that I do at USA Today for the Win, that's owned by them. Stuff that I do at North Carolina Public Radio, that's owned by them. So that's why I had to get permission from the Orlando Sentinel to republish this stuff. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that I write, usually I'll write it first in a Word doc on my computer. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So yes, that's how I was able to recover some of the work, but not all of it.
And once again, I'm posting the link in the Twitch pitch to the book itself, available on Amazon. Rowdy and Proud, Atlanta United's 2018 MLS Cup season and other Southern soccer stories. And if you are interested in basketball in the Delmarva, his other book, High School Basketball on Maryland's Eastern Shore, A Shore Hoops History, that came out about a year ago. Mitch Northam and Paul Butler writing the foreword on that one. That one was fun to kind of proofread and get a peek on before everything was laid out there. Mitch, as always, my friend, don't be a stranger. And congratulations on getting the book published. And by the way, looking at our friends on Amazon, there's a piece of trivia. When it comes to soccer books, and Abby's got a great question about book signings, so we got to keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on Mitch and book signings. Piece of trivia. There you go. Piece of trivia this morning for this particular book. You look on Amazon, you look in the soccer section, the number one new release, this book. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mitch, don't be a stranger. Anything else is going on in your mind and anything up there in North Carolina, just come on and crash. It'll be fun to catch up with you. Thanks for hanging out with us for a half hour this morning.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if I have any courage stories or anything, I'll let you know. Or we can come back and talk triple option if you want.
Oh, we'll do both. Yeah, we'll talk into USL with you. We'll talk triple option with you. Mitch Northam, thanks for hanging out.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
Mitch Northam.
See you, Mitch.
Book number 2, number 1 in new releases in soccer on Amazon this morning. So well done by Mitch. The book it's been out for about a week. So if you are interested, and I'm sure that if you found a way to get in touch with Mitch, if you wanted to buy a copy of the book, mail it to Mitch, have him sign it for you, and then get it mailed back if you just took care of postage both ways, then that'd be pretty cool too. So congratulations to Mitch. Mitch now has his second book, and that means that I've got to continue to write to keep my balance and keep my margins ahead of Mitch. So that's good stuff there.
Just write one about the Sandy Creek final last year.
So you want me to lose my job is what you're saying. You want me to lose my job. All right. I see.
No, you don't have to lose your job. Just go talk to people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can talk about that one on the record, sir.
Just call it the longest yard that didn't exist.
Yeah. As long as Adam Sandler doesn't touch it, then we'll be fine. Anything else, sir, before you go?
Oh, not really. We are closing in next week. Just a reminder, everybody, next week is U.S. Open Cup action. It will be dumb. It will be beautiful.
Yes.
It should be a lot of fun. And I know John's going to remind everyone about this as well, but high school playoff action is still going on for the soccer side of things. John and Jason will have the call tonight, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Jason will be at Midtown for the doubleheader, and we will have the doubleheader at River Ridge on Thursday. So very, very busy week for us. And obviously, we'll things back up next Monday when we're in the round of 8. But this is the round. Yeah.
Will says that the soccer not kits are due on Thursday.
Oh,
so if y'all haven't seen those yet, please go find them.
Well, Olive in York, and I will say this: this is an unsolicited plug. Olive in York has very, very quickly become like my top outfitter. Whether it's the Jessica Charman Worst Voice in Sports Talk Radio T-shirt to benefit the Anton Walks Foundation. By the way, May the 12th, Friday night, Reverb Hard Rock. We're going to be having some fun there. So keep your invite doors open on that one because it's a very enclosed space. So that one's going to be fun in May, and we'll be flying around all over the place. But see, so Jarrett, you're back for Wall Pass Wednesday?
Yeah, man, that's the plan.
All right.
Like Draymond Green doesn't step on me or something stupid. God, that game was drunk last night. Man, whoever wins that Kings Warriors series, I don't know if they win the next round simply because they might be dead. I don't know who wins that series because the loser and the winner might both be dead. They're going to kill each other.
Yeah, I mean the coup de grace that Draymond Green delivered to Sabonis last night after Sabonis grabbed his leg.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, of course Sabonis is going to grab his leg because if there's anyone in the league I'm trying to get under the skin of to see if I can make him do something stupid, it's Draymond Green.
And sure enough,
because Draymond just curb stomped him.
Yep, Draymond gave a coup de grace to Sabonis and got ejected, scoring 8 points. Sacramento, that place was nuts. By the way, that environment was fantastic last night in the 3-6 when you're going up against Golden State. And I think it's the first time that they're down 0-2 in 8 years. When it comes,
it's the first. Well, I think it's longer than that. I think it's the first time they've been down 0-2 since like the 2007 season with Monta Ellis.
Well, then there you
go. Even better, this is the first time I think the Kings have been in the playoffs since Peja Stojakovic was still dropping buckets, and Mike Bibby and
Vlade.
Doug Christie.
Vlade Divac.
Mm-hmm.
As he was running for mayor of Sacramento at the time. But yeah, no doubt.
Man, hey, if he keeps it up, GT might win mayor race in Atlanta.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll catch up with you tomorrow, sir.
Sounds good.
All right. Jared Smith hanging out with us for extended period here on a Tuesday. So since Jared is now gone and we have got a chance to catch our breath, it is that time where I get to read a promo. But, of course, that means they have to take the music out of loop and I've got to take it down to 14 because I think 14 was the accepted level, wasn't it? I think that was 14. And hit rock and read a promo. Here we go. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's our friends at Eliminize Service. Eliminize Service deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, condos. Created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pet cigarettes and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize Service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers, kind to the environment, offering a green way going about things, getting rid of odors without any toxic residue whatsoever. We like green ways about going about things. Different than Febreze or our other masking agents that you may have under the sink or above you in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard to take out that masking agent, you spray it in the air. There's a reason they call it a masking agent, because You're just masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem all the way down to the molecule like our friends at Lemonize Service do with their proven scientific formula. Price is one of two ways to come up with a price and a means that is affordable for you, either by the cubic foot or parts per million. Offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website, and this is where I pick up my pen. Lemonize.com is the website, but after the .com, do us a favor and go /Atlanta so everybody knows what part of the world that you are addressing them from so they can help you with your problem. Full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Lemonize.com /Atlanta for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Lemonize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH with Tuesday Thoughts that have gone all over the place. I know you're shocked. So that is that's your promo. And once again, reminder, it is Midtown tonight for their doubleheader. It is River Ridge Thursday for their doubleheader. And our march in the playoffs continues all around the state. And thanks for hanging out. Like I said, yesterday it was great. It was great to see both ACA, Atlanta Classical Academy, and Lincoln County out at Silverbacks Park. Lincolnton is about a 2.5-hour drive from Atlanta. Basically, if you're going to Augusta out I-20, the Thompson exit, which is the last major city or major exit before you start getting into the Augusta exits, is the Thompson exit. You get off the Thompson exit, you go north, and you basically run into the river there and all of the lakes. That's Lincolnton. Tremendous high school football history and a great soccer history now developing under the coaches there on the boys and girls side this year. First ever appearances in the playoffs. First ever home match for the girls in the playoffs, beating Bowden. Then they traveled to Silverbacks Park yesterday, lose 4-2 to an ACA team that has made deep runs in the playoffs in Class A, one of the smallest schools in the state of Georgia. They've made playoff runs last handful of years. They lost 10 players coming into the season. Lincoln County, with them building their program, Jason and I were there after the match because I wanted to introduce Jason to Coach Homskis on the girls' side at Lincoln County. And it was, it was great to hear how Will and his sister and the community coaches, one of them a former player, one who's been a community coach for a long time, have been building that program. First ever year that they had a JV schedule full. 30 players on the roster. They had a 9th grader in net. And it was the first time that they had played on a turf surface like they did at Silverbacks Park. So it was a bit of an adjustment for them. But to see the support driving from Lincolnton, to hear Coach Homskis mention that a lot of folks were listening to the broadcast on the network, I thought it was really cool. So we're hoping to continue to spread that same kind of awareness for a lot of programs. Like I said, doubleheader at Midtown tonight with Jason. Doubleheader at River Ridge on Thursday with both of us. And then once again, we'll pick it back up in the early part of next week, probably Monday, Tuesday, as we get you ready for the Final Fours in Mercer and McEachern. So thanks to all of y'all who've been incredibly supportive. Thanks to our friends at Kaiser Permanente who've been incredibly supportive. And thanks to you for always for listening for these kinds of things as we go. There were two other topics and they're based overseas, but one of them is based on a coach. Before we get into gossip, rumor, and innuendo and what to watch today. Jesse Marsh in Leeds. Well, and this was what I was going to get into before Mitch showed up. But before Mitch came on the air with us to talk about his book, I was going to get into Leeds United. And Leeds got just destroyed yesterday. 6-1. Javi Gracia and the his gig as he was trying to make sure that they get to stay up in the Premier League. It was not a good show yesterday. Losing 6-1 to Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp, after the match, says that they clicked. He's proclaiming the dawning of a new Liverpool. He did not do it with his hand over his heart and his other hand in the air. But he said he's proclaiming the dawning of a new Liverpool beating Leeds 6-1. He said it was their best performance of the season. Trent Alexander-Arnold was more in a hybrid role, same as he was with the draw with Arsenal. 2 assists for TAA. Liverpool's first win in all comps since they thrashed Manchester United 7-0 in early March. 6 points of Spurs in 5th place with a match in hand. Klopp said, quote, where we will end up, I don't know, but it will go on after the season. That's why we need all the results and performances to build on and understand. So we can build something new, something slightly different. If we can't get anything this season, then we have to build on good performances. I'm thinking like that instead of thinking where we will end up. I have no clue if we can get close, but it's not too important. I'd like to see us with the same desire, passion, and understanding that we showed tonight. It's our job to find that consistency. Was delighted with their counter press. First 4 goals, all coming off situations where Leeds turned the ball over, and Liverpool came in transition. Best game we played this season from many different aspects. Caused a lot of mistakes from Leeds, sensational goals. Counter press the best we have since long ago. 92nd minute, we lose the ball. 4 players chase. It's outstanding and exactly what we wanted. You can't explain the counter press. Jamie Carragher, Liverpool were clinical. The Leeds team have had 3 different managers but remain the worst team defensively in the Premier League. They've got really poor defenders, not convinced that the keeper, meaning Melier, I know he's young, he's got no presence. They look like they've got a kid in goal. Yeah, and Byrne, you're right. Leeds is just bad. But this is my question. And it's more of my thought, and obviously I'm going to start something in the Twitch pitch. I think that the management at Leeds, and once again, American-owned, remember the 49ers were a part of this. I think that the Leeds management panicked in the firing of Jesse Marsh. It's interesting that you have the American ownership groups with 2 of the more higher profile firings in the Premier League. Sorry, sackings in the Premier League. I just, like I said, I find the irony that it's 2 American ownership groups. I find that rather, that's kind of out there. But I think Leeds panicked. I think they absolutely panicked in firing Jesse Marsh. Because after the sacking, and it was during the January window, then you have a caretaker, then you have Javi Gracia. And they are where they are right now. Looking at Premier League, and we looked at the run-ins yesterday. Looking at the table in the Premier League, Leeds is down there as a part of the discussion. 29 points, 2 points from safety, better goal difference than both Everton and Forest. 2 points behind West Ham. Next match they have is with Fulham. And they've won 2 and lost 3 in their last 5. So I think that there are teams that are worse. That's why I think Leeds will not go down. But I think that at the time, when you look at the schedule, let's go back to February. Let's go to the January window when they wigged out. And looking at what happened at the time when Marsh got sacked. Let's go into January. So Jesse Marsh, I want to get the date right because it was at the end of the January window. Early February. So February 6th is when they sacked Jesse Marsh. Sunday, February 5, you lose to Nottingham Forest 1-0. That was it. You get the back-to-backer with Manchester United. Draw 1, Manchester United wins 2-0. Everton, beat you 1-0. Southampton, you beat 1-0. Chelsea beats you 1-0. Leeds and Brighton, a 2-2 draw. Leeds beat Wolves 4-2. Losing to Arsenal, no surprise. Losing to Nottingham Forest. 5 from Crystal Palace and 6 from Liverpool. Last 2 matches, you've been outscored 11-2. But those matches after Nottingham Forest, you had some opportunities. Everton, Southampton, 1-1 in those. You beat Wolves, 2-1. You should have beaten you beat Forest, but you lost 1-0, which caused the sacking of Jesse Marsh. But I think all of this chaos that has been created by sackings, just ask Chelsea, has created more problems for what Jesse Marsh has created. Then you have the caretaker and then Javi Gracia trying to sit there and do what he wants to do that's away from Jesse Marsh stylistically, and then you have all of this problem. Do I think Leeds will go down? No. I think there are teams that are worse. But I think that what it does do is it causes a lot of pause in trying to figure out what to do next season when it comes to what you're seeing out of Leeds United. And speaking, and this was another topic I had in my head this morning. All right, so Frank Lampard, brought in by Todd Bowley and possibly James Corden. So Frank Lampard said that Chelsea is not a broken team. Quote, "We are not where we want to be. I think broken is a bit much. League position is a reality, and we're 2-0 down in this match going into Real Madrid. We have to work against that. I don't think anything tomorrow will be better than winning the Champions League, in my opinion, because we had many moments of that run of difficulties against Barcelona and Napoli. But because of the moment we're in, we have to fight very hard to get through, so winning it would be special." Lampard also yelled at the fans, wanted to rally them. "I think anything is possible in football. There is no doubt that we are competitive, and we deserve to be here. The opponent is a really high level. I've been here too many times at Stamford Bridge for a midweek Champions League knockout game to understand the atmosphere will be great. We need to engage the fans throughout because they can help us. It's why it's a two-legged competition. It's one of the best out there. I'm confident in that. We just need to play our part." So, Frank Lampard says that Chelsea is not broken. Right now, where they are on the table, anything is possible. But Frank Lampard, and if you were Frank Lampard said that he was cool with Todd Bowley going into the locker room and saying what he said and yelling at the players. I mean, of course he has to say that because he was brought in by Bowley. But I don't know how that sits when my new owner, I mean, this is very, very George Steinbrenner-y. Steinbrenner-ish, Steinbrenner-y. You remember with Jerry Jones, George Steinbrenner, take your pick of the owner that has invested everything and wants to be active in every aspect of the business. That's what you're seeing right now with Chelsea. I've invested all this money, therefore I can do this, I can say this, I can come in and do whatever I want. Yes, you can. That's not in dispute. But the notion that you can do this and you want to yell at your players after investing, was it 630 million pounds and bringing in all this talent under Todd Bowley? But you have an owner who says this. Does that motivate me in this day and age, or does that turn me off in this day and age? That is what I'm going to be looking at going forward when it comes to Chelsea. Frank Lampard says, yeah, it was cool. After I said what I said, the owner came in and yelled, and I'm not saying that Frank Lampard said this, but Frank Lampard says his piece. After that, Todd Bowley and the other two owners, Bedat Igbali and Hans-Jörg Wyss, go in, and apparently Bowley allegedly, possibly, probably, maybe yelled at them. How does that motivate me? My owner comes in and yells at me. Am I going to be one of those guys that sits there and says, yeah, I'll show you? Rah! Like Roy Kent. Let's go beat when they were in season 1, where they beat Everton for the first time in a long time. Let's go beat these, Is that how you respond? Do you respond like Roy Kent? Or do you sit there and you go, man, what's up with him? You go out and do your deal. That's the question. So Chelsea, Frank Lampard says that they're not broken. Leeds United might be at this point, having given up 11 goals in their last 2 matches. But I still think Leeds panicked in sacking Jesse Marsh. And it's not a good look right now on a bunch of different teams. It is a bunch of different teams with a bunch of different problems all the way across the board. Chilwell and Koulibaly were absent. Chelsea's meeting with Nagelsmann for talks. And there's no plan to cut the Lampard run short right now. So you've got that to pay attention to. Chelsea and Real Madrid, that's later today, as well as Napoli and AC Milan. Tomorrow, the other 2 Champions League matches, Man City with a 3-0 lead over Bayern Munich, Inter with a 2-0 lead over Benfica. Right now, Real Madrid leads Chelsea 2-0. Milan leads Napoli by the score of 1-0. And once again, those are at 3 o'clock this afternoon. A lot of other action in the championship as everybody's chasing that. Gossip rumor and innuendo before we get into juice boxes and everything else that's going on. Today's gossip. West Ham and Declan Rice would prefer a summer move to Arsenal, with Newcastle also interested. Remember, Eddie Howe said that they're going to try to swoop in and get 4 prime players, 4 world-talented players. They're going to try to do that in the summer. Rice is among several English options, including James Maddison and Ivan Toney, being considered by the Magpies as they target the arrival of 4 elite players. That was the word, elite. Bayern Munich's Ryan Gravenberch told Liverpool he's open to a summer move to Anfield, according to the Daily Mirror. Barcelona are confident of signing Ilkay Gundogan on a free once his deal expires in the summer. Remember, Pep Guardiola says, I want to keep him now. Tottenham set to rival Chelsea for Luis Enrique. Antonio Conte could be set to join Roma next season, with their current manager Jose Mourinho tipped to take over at PSG. That's from Calcio Mercato. Keep an eye on that. Villa, Everton, and West Ham are all interested in Inter Milan's Joaquin Correa. Chelsea will try to sell Conor Gallagher this summer. That's the 4-letter paper, but once again, don't be surprised if Crystal Palace, if they stay up, if they try to chase after Conor Gallagher. Remember how well he was received when he was there. Arsenal have offered Reece Nelson a new contract. Remains doubt over his long-term future. Villa, Fulham, West Ham, and Brighton interested. 4-letter paper. West Ham set to receive a fee of about £1.75 million from Besiktas for left back Arthur Masuaku after the obligation to buy clause was triggered. Villa have also set their sights on a summer move for Kyle Walker at Manchester City, who's out of contract in 24. Chelsea set to sign 15-year-old Colombian midfielder Kendry Paez, who will join the club in 2025 when he's 18 in a deal worth £17.6 million. That's from our friend Fabrizio Romano. So that's the worldwide scope of what's going on. Checking in on the papers, like as Will Patton said in Remember the Titans. Once again, avoiding the 3 and the 4-letter paper. Once again, reminded that the Telegraph says Spurs planning to make contact with Luis Enrique. Newcastle initially planned to operate with a budget of just £20 million topped up by player sales, but he has apparently been able to persuade the owners to go after those 4 elite players. The Times, once again, we mentioned Ilkay Gundogan and the confidence of trying to get him signed, avoiding the 3 and the 4-letter paper. Daily Express says Chelsea reportedly rejected the chance to make Luis Enrique the interim manager immediately, instead preferring to hire Lampard on the interim. Milan considering moves for Borussia Mönchengladbach striker Marcus Thuram and Bobby Firmino as they look to low-cost deals, then one to make Romelu Lukaku's loan move permanent. Sporting Lisbon are reportedly furious with defender Jerry St. Just after he spoke out about interest coming from a leading Premier League club. And The Athletic it was listed that Forest lining up a move for former City Ground favorite Pierre van Hooydonk's son, Sidney, who has impressed in the Netherlands this year. 16 goals, 31 matches at Bologna. The independent Istanbul could again miss out on hosting a Champions League final amid growing concerns of the season and the unrest, a political unrest following the country's elections a month earlier. Also, I would wonder how the country is still trying to recover from the earthquake that happened. I know that Istanbul was not as affected in north central Turkey as everything was down in southwest Turkey, but as the country on the whole, how are they responding to relief and trying to grow back after the earthquake? Scottish papers, Aberdeen striker Duke has confirmed that the Dons will be due to pay Benfica half of any transfer fee. Jason Cummings is at the center of a transfer battle in India. Mumbai City joined champions Mohun Bagan in a bidding war to sign the former Scottish striker Stephen McLean. Will get the chance to stake his claim to take over from Callum Davidson at St. Johnstone, potentially staying in caretaker until the end of the year. And Aberdeen have renewed interest in signing Go Ahead Eagles defender Jay Idzis, who they had hoped to bring to Batadri before Jim Goodwin was dismissed. So you've got all of that going on. You also have this morning, let's see what you can watch. Obviously, you've got the wall-to-wall with Champions League. BN has the Copa Libertadores, triple header, 6, 8, and 10. Fluminense against one of our favorites on soccer over there, the strongest. Boca Juniors playing Deportivo Pereira at 8. Independiente del Valle playing Liverpool at 10. No, not that Liverpool. Univision has Champions League, as does Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has both matches at 3 o'clock. VIX has Napoli-Milan at 3. VIX Plus has both matches at 3 o'clock. In the championship, Millwall and Birmingham City, they are at 3 o'clock. And you can catch that once again on ESPN Plus, in addition to other places. I did not have the I was watching matches on MLS on browser. I was not victim to the falling down of Apple and Netflix on the weekend. But it was, from what I understood, it was a very, very frustrating time for a lot of folks, and understandably so. Juice box numbers. Chelsea is an underdog at home to Real Madrid at a plus 175. This is the match, not advancing through. In the match itself, draws a plus 260. Real Madrid is a plus 152. Napoli at 3 o'clock is a minus 116 hosting AC Milan. Once again, this is just to win the match. Draw is a plus 261. AC Milan on the road is a plus 354. So you got all that stuff going on. TFA, Total Football Analysis. Arsenal's stutter is a pattern, not a coincidence. And so they have Jack Manship believing that the concession of a lead versus West Ham is a pattern, and Manship explains his theory. And we went over the numbers yesterday where Opta says it's about 56-44 that Manchester City turns around and gets the title. Arteta has changed the perception of himself, and this is Manship talking. Talks about the 2-0 win. Moyes returned to a 4-3-3 shape after deploying a 4-4-2 at Fulham in the previous Premier League fixture. Bonner returned to the starting line to partner Kurt Zuma in the heart of defense. The only change in defense was Lucas Paqueta. So Paqueta now joined the midfield trio after missing out on Danny Ings and missing out at Fulham. Danny Ings loses his place as Mikel Antonio took role of central striker. Jared Bowen, Said Benrahma worked from the wings. The high press was a point that Manship got into, and Arsenal playing through the thirds, reestablishing their tactical identity, trying to get through West Ham. It goes the Odegaard press, the pressing map. The off-the-ball reactions for Arsenal, Manship says, proving costly. Playing attractive football. Thank you, Abby. Have a terrific Tuesday. The matzah is still being consumed, and it is very, 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 very good. The chocolate matzah, amazing. Playing attractive football, scoring goals when things are going your way is one thing, but pulling through a victory despite immense opposition and circumstantial pressure is a whole other game. So, Arsenal shots against, they have that in the column, and I will post this in the Twitch pitch for your analysis and for your thoughts about Arsenal. I still think that it's going to be Manchester City that's going to win. I think they're going to win the game at the Etihad. Manchester City will be down 7 points with a match in hand, and then one of those matches in hand is against Arsenal. So they're saying Opta that Manchester City will win by 1 point at the end of the season. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So very, very busy day across the board. Once again, tonight, it is high school playoff soccer at Midtown. Jason will have the calls. Matches 5:30, 7:30, or 6 and 8. I forget. But doubleheader tonight, doubleheader Thursday, and we will have a lot of those things to talk about. Once again, Mitch Northam's new book. Great to have him on the show this morning. And it was very, very cool to get his stories. As an author, when I get other authors on, I like to kind of talk through the process of what it's like to put a book together, even though Mitch found his stories, when an entity that no longer exists still is attached to a lot of your data. That, to me, seemed like the biggest stumbling block, where Mitch was trying to get stuff from the Orlando Sentinel after Pro Soccer USA went into the world of folks not being able to write anymore. So thanks a lot for everybody hanging out. And once again, soccer tonight at Midtown and playoffs. We'll be back at it again, Wall Pass Wednesday tomorrow. Dylan Butler joining us at 10 o'clock. Bart Keeler talking Julie Ertz, talking women's national team, talking NWSL. We don't know if we'll be talking Arsenal. I think his mug will be different, probably the West Virginia mug tomorrow, to discuss things on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Anything and everything on the table as always. And thanks to all of you for being patient with all of my rambling. And by the way, the Trish Stratus promo last night on Raw, amazing. So that is another round of soccer down here. As always, great to have Jarrett hanging on and putting up with me as well. And thanks to all of you. Mucha Platial played safe, and since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning for a Wall Pass Wednesday. Soccer tonight. Keep it safe. Play soon.